Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and you are watching episode 4 of the Soft Focus Blu-ray reviews, sort of mini podcast, YouTube show, as you will. I'm joined here by my good friend Elliot Cohen, and we're going to talk about a couple of films that we want to discuss that have been released on physical media. Doesn't have to be released recently, but it's maybe something we watched recently that we want to sort of recommend or just discuss in a review style. So, as always, guests first. Elliot, what do you want to talk about today?
Hello. So I've got a special one here. It's special because this label that's released this one has only just started releasing in the UK again, because they did release at one time, but I'm talking about Severin, and they've released Nightmares in a Damaged Brain on 4K, which is also known as Nightmare in the US. This film is it's interesting. It's about a guy who is a murderer, or he was at one point, and he's been institutionalized, and then he sort of escapes. He's let free, and he ends up going on like a murder spree kind of thing. But it's done in quite an artful way. Maybe you'll agree with me, Sam,
I will
because
agree.
I hadn't seen this before, and it really surprised me, particularly because there's a lot of stuff that there's a moment when he's walking through a street at night and there's loads of neon signs and stuff, and it reminded me of Taxi Driver a lot.
Yeah,
And just stuff like that. This really was not what I was expecting in that sort of sense.
especially for it being video nasty.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just going to mention that. So this was a video nasty. It was banned in the UK, or it had to be severely censored to be shown. And there's a whole backstory about one of the distributors in the UK who released this on an uncut video, so illegally, and he ended up having to go to prison. And there's a whole documentary about him on this disc, and it goes into how some people think he was assassinated, some people think he's still alive. There's a whole mystery around this guy. So that's almost as fascinating as the film itself. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, the guy's name was David Hamilton Grant, or at least that was one of his aliases.
yeah, and he worked in like the adult film industry and stuff like that. And I was reading on Wikipedia that he made um, when ET came out, he made some kind of spoof cover for like an adult film with like an ET design,
Right.
and like the studios shut that down. They did not like that at all. So interesting guy. And that was all new to me. The film was new to me. All that information was new to me. So that's
Yeah.
a roundabout way of saying this is a great release.
Oh, it's fantastic. Like I this is the first I've got it here as well. Yeah, it's good to see Severin releasing in the UK again. I don't know what their plans are for future stuff, but it's going to make it a lot cheaper because I'm quite a big fan of Severin films. I've got quite a
Mm,
big collection of their stuff, but it's not the easiest. Well, it's not the cheapest thing to import. But a lot of
no.
their releases really are fantastic and some worth it. But it's at a price. But like when I was going to order this from the US when it came out, but it was quite pricey, and I was going to get it at some point, but maybe wait for a sale or something. But then they announced they were releasing in the UK, and I just jumped at the chance of pre-ordering it. So just to show that there is a UK, need for these Severin
Mm,
titles to make sure that UK people are buying them if they want them from whatever shops or outlets are putting them out. But yeah, this is very much it's as I think it says on the back, the most repulsive, offensive, degrading, gory, depraved, and horrifying movie ever made. Now, I agree with some of those things on here. I wouldn't say it's the most horrifying movie I've ever seen, but
no.
I can see why it got the attention it did at the time for being a video nasty, particularly with some of its gore effects and its sexuality and stuff in the film, and it is quite
Mm,
scuzzy. Um,
yeah.
but it does it in a, as he said, in a very artful way. I think there were critics at the time when this came out that were like, sort of or in defense of it when it was on trial, like the distributors were on being prosecuted, basically. I think this is
Yeah.
the only film from the original 72 Video Nasties in the UK where people were actually went to prison for. And it was
Okay.
also featured in Censor. Have you seen Censor?
No, I've not. I've not. I've heard. I think you told me about it, and I know it had a Blu-ray from Second Sight a while
Yes,
back,
it did.
didn't
It
it?
had a special edition. I bought the Vinegar Syndrome version of that before that one was announced. But yeah, it basically covers someone who works for the censor board in the 80s,
Mm,
and their job is to watch all these like disgusting, depraved films and give them
mm,
classifications or not pass them and things like that. And it covers Nightmare in there, so it's a bit like fiction but uses like real life situations and stuff. So that was the first time I was aware of this film, but I'd never seen anything from it.
mm.
But I'd heard of his reputation as being a video nasty, and some of these I've seen maybe half of the ones that are on the original 72 like list, and some of them are just really bad, and I don't understand why they got banned in the first place, because they're
Yeah.
really tame. Maybe for the time they were extreme, but I still think through the lens, trying to look at it from their point of view at the time, it was still like a stretch. But some of them are just outright just, yeah, probably should have been banned, but I'm not for censorship. So but this is, as you said, very artful, and it is directed by like an Italian filmmaker, so it's got that European sensibilities but in an American film, and just like the use of music in it is very like juxtaposes some of the stuff that's going on in it. As you said, with the
Mm,
taxi driver reference you made, there's where he's walking through it's like 42nd Street or somewhere in New York, when you got all like the neon signs of all the like the adult theaters and stuff that he's walking past and things like that. And it's got this really weird but cool, it's not jazzy, but it's got this really cool score that sort of, it's quite melancholic, and
mm.
maybe makes you feel sorry for this chap. As you
Yeah.
should have also mentioned, he's like being subjected to like an experimental military thing where he's being reformed. So
Yeah.
he is been institutionalized, but he's also being given like therapy to like making him like a member of society again. And just like he's deteriorating, and this experiment
Mm.
hasn't worked. And then it's all about him sort of reliving childhood trauma and stuff. And yeah, there's some of the effects, and that final 15 minutes or so of the film where everything comes to a conclusion is just, yeah, intense to say the least.
Mm.
I was thoroughly
And
impressed with it.
it's interesting because you mentioned the effects a few times, and there's a whole thing about how Tom Savini, the great visual effects guy, is credited in the film as like a supervisor, an effects supervisor or
He's
something.
director of special effects or something like
Right.
that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And he and after the film came out, he famously distanced himself from it and said he wasn't even involved. And people were like, "No, he was actually there on the set doing stuff." So it's
There's
another
photographs,
weird
like
thing.
even on this disc, there's like
Mm,
images of him on set. Like there's a bit where like an axe is being swung during
yeah.
like a very important part of the film, and there's images of him swinging the axe on set. So it's like
Mm,
he claims to have been a consultant and turned up and like advised the main, effects people about certain ways things should have been done, but apparently he didn't design any of the effects or execute them. But
well,
it's his.
apparently it was. I was going to say apparently it was some kind of dispute between him and the producers. I think maybe over pay, like he wasn't
Yeah,
paid enough, so he didn't want to credit on the film and all that kind of thing. So yeah,
yeah.
just another interesting backstory to an interesting film.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, really scuzzy, really sort of. It felt very 70s, but it was made in 81. But it has had
Mm,
that feel about it, and I really like the music. And yeah, the release is stacked. I haven't watched everything on the disc, but I did watch that. It's like an hour documentary about David Hamilton Grant, which was really cool. And then I watched the Tom Savini interview, where he's just basically like,
mm.
yeah, I wasn't involved, sort of like denying
Yeah.
everything. And it was really interesting, and I want to listen to the audio commentary on this, because I think that would be quite an interesting listen.
Something I looked up just out of curiosity on the forums, people were saying that the US version does differ to this in the special features.
Oh, okay.
Apparently there was some short films, probably from the director, that were on that disc that aren't on this.
Okay.
So maybe that's licensing or
Probably.
censorship. I don't
I
know.
think, yeah, because this is a 2-disc release, isn't it? Yeah. So the American one I know is 3 discs. So that might be where the extra stuff is.
Yeah, but I'm happy with this. I don't need too much more. Everything is there that I want, so it's okay.
Yeah. Definitely. I loved it. I thought it was great, and I saw that you got it. You posted that you had it on Instagram, and I was like, oh, mine's coming in the post really soon, and I can't wait to watch it because I love stuff like this, like genre films, and like just discovering why something was a video nasty when I hadn't seen it, and it turned out to actually be like a really good film as well. It wasn't just like depraved for the sake of being depraved. It was like really well made, and I loved it. But yeah, Nightmare in the US, and then Nightmares in a Damaged Brain in the UK. So really cool. Awesome pick. Really liked it. I'm all about the horror. Now, my pick. So yeah, Nightmares in Damaged Brain came out in 81, and my pick for today's episode, it also came out in 1981. Very different type of film, but it also has quite a lot of horrific moments in it. And I'm talking about Walter Hill's Southern Comfort. This is from Vinegar Syndrome. This is one of their VSU lines. This is like their 8th one in their series. So these come in like clasp, like magnet sealed boxes, and then has like a slip cover inside, and then like a big booklet and stuff in there, and it's just pretty cool, like in terms of packaging, and it's a 4K as well. I hadn't seen this film before, so this was my first introduction to this. I've seen a bunch of other Walter Hill films, but this really blew me away. So it tells the story of what they call National Guard. So it's like the army recruits that are still based in the US, and they're out in Louisiana, and they're out on a sort of recon exercise. So they're just training, whatever, and they go into like the Louisiana bayous and stuff, and they sort of get lost on their way on this exercise. Sort of like their trail has been covered in water due to rain in the wintertime, and they take these canoes that belong to the Cajuns who live in the bayou, and the Cajuns discover that their canoes have been taken, and then a conflict arises between them, and it sort of is a reflection and a meditation on like actual warfare and just the general American and possibly just the general Western idea of America, of like war culture and what it means to be in conflict with someone. And it's also like a study of like masculinity that's been like exponentially sort of zoomed in on because of the situation that they're in, and how everything just falls apart when they're not checked on their behavior. And has an absolutely incredible score from Ry Cooder, who we know who did the music for Paris, Texas, and it has that sort of similar vibe to it, where it's very much a reflection of the location, and has this very melancholic and somber tone to it. And I was really, the music kicks in during the intro credits of the film. I was like, oh, this guitar's really good, and it's like really hitting an emotional chord with me, even though I'd like only been watching the film for like 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, this is really good. This sounds like something I would really enjoy listening to, outside of this film. And then up pops Ry Cooder's name in the credits, like music arranged and composed by Ry Cooder. And I was like, oh my God, like this is just great. I'm just like, I know I'm in for something amazing. And then when the guitar themes that pop up during the film, like really do elevate things, because it's just the work that he does is just absolutely amazing. This has a really cool cast. It's got Fred Ward, David Carradine's in it. Powers Booth is in it, and he's really good. The whole cast as well is just, it's quite a lot of these sort of guardsmen that unfortunately meet their demise throughout the film. But yeah, it's really, really good. So have you seen this film?
Yeah, so I saw it a very long time ago, and I can't remember too much about it. But I will say I am infinitely jealous of you and that 4K box set.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty special. It looks and sounds amazing. Vinegar Syndrome have done an amazing job with this. I didn't expect them to release this. They are branching out a lot more. They do a lot of, they're still very much based in genre and exploitation and things like that, but they are picking up a few more mainstream titles here and there, and then just going for something like this where maybe their core fan base isn't super like knowledgeable or would be into this per se. Hopefully some people just took a punt on it, basically based on the Vinegar Syndrome name, because this is an absolutely incredible release. Yeah, I really, really loved it. Even though it came out in 81, it's set in the 70s, so it feels like a 70s film. But it came out in 81, and just, yeah, everything about it, the acting, the camera work, and just the general choreography and blocking in this film is amazing, because it's like it wasn't filmed in the Louisiana bayous. It was like filmed in like the Texas sort of like bayous around a lake, Cado. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it was all like on location, and I don't know how they filmed some of the scenes, because they're just wading through like so much swampland, and it must have been a nightmare to film. But it really does have that sort of sticky, deep south, like uncharted territory feel to it, and sort of it's meant to be set like not long after the Vietnam War ended and stuff. So it has that sort of, strangers in a strange land feel, like Americans going over into Vietnam and things like that. So it's like a reflection of the times as well. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing. What great release. So glad I picked this up. And yeah, I love everything about it. And I hope you can get your hands on a copy of it one day, because I'm sure you will really love it, especially some of the special features on here. It's a stacked release, really cool book. Yeah, awesome stuff.
yeah, I do need to get that. I really like Walter Hill as a director. He's an interesting kind of guy in terms of his career, because he was always sort of considered like a bit of a genre filmmaker, or like, very much on the kind of cult side of stuff, like The
Yeah.
Warriors, films like that. But I think over the last 10 years, he's really there's been a bit of a reappraisal. People are looking at his films a bit more analytically. Films like The Driver.
Yeah.
Or I watched that film Extreme Prejudice. Have you seen that one?
No, that's one I haven't seen.
That's a really good one as well. So yeah, he's made a lot of good films.
Yeah, for sure. Really interesting filmmaker. I hope more of his stuff comes to 4K. I still need to. I'm hoping someone puts it out over here, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. But The Warriors on 4K got a release by Arrow in the US, and it's got the theatrical cut, because I know a lot of people aren't too fond of the director's cut. It's one of those instances where, director having free reign may, for some people or most people's opinion, consensus seems to be that the theatrical version is the superior cut. And the director's cut is the only version I've seen, because I have got like a Blu-ray from the UK, but I'd love to see that. Yeah, awesome. Any closing remarks before we end today's episode?
I don't think so. I think we picked two good films there.
I think we have, both from 1981, which was a coincidence, but a happy one. Two quite differing films, but yeah, Some Comfort has got some really gruesome moments in it. It's surprising it was, to be honest. I was quite horrified at times of what happens in it, but yeah, absolutely amazing. Lots of social commentary and just general amazing filmmaking. So it's a thumbs up from me on that one. Right then, anyone watching, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, let us know if you picked any of these films up and watched them yourself and what you thought of them. And yeah, that'll be it for today's episode. Until next time, everyone, take care.
Okay, goodbye.